to the ACR Bulletin podcast, the show where we examine the latest trends affecting radiology. I'm your host, Chris Hobson, and today we'll be talking with speaker Amanda Crowell Itliong. Amanda is a disabled patient advocate who has lived with cancer for 14 years. As part of her work on behalf of cancer patients, Amanda is a racial disparities in cancer researcher.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You've been a podcast guest in the past, and we've discussed your important work as a patient advocate. So today, I was hoping to talk a little bit more about a subject I know we touched on last time a little bit called Scanxiety. So generally speaking, Scanxiety is connected with negative feelings some patients associate with imaging. So I wondered if, before we get too far into that, if you could actually just give us a little background again as to I guess where you come from and how you got involved in this really important line of work and how you became a patient advocate.
Absolutely, Chris. Well, I've been doing this work as a patient advocate for about 8 years now. It took getting cancer the fourth time to really knock me over the head with with the idea that, this was my challenge in life, dealing with this cancer repeatedly so many times, but also that it was, kind of could be a superpower if I wanted to use it that way. I really love being able to kind of turn the challenges I've had into ways to help other patients. And one of the opportunities that came about was getting to work with the ACR, and radiologist and radiology is something that's really, both the doctors and the work is pretty mysterious to most patients. So for me to kind of get the inside look and be able to make some change in that world has been really, really wonderful. So I think for me, patient advocacy really, it came right to my doorstep. It was a calling in a sense, and I'm really excited I've been able to turn some of those challenges into successful interventions and strategies to make things better for other patients too.
That's so great. Yeah, it's such a positive way of looking at it. So, and I know that permeates all of your work and that you do. And, it'd be great to be able to maybe link to some of that work too in the show notes going forward. So hopefully everyone can get more familiarized with what you do. So with that being said, now let's talk a little bit about Scanxiety specifically. Now, first off, can you please give us your preferred definition for it? Because I think there are a couple different ones.
Sure. Well, it's a portmanteau word, right? Kind of a fun part of language. It's the combination of scan and anxiety. And that's really what people feel is kind of nerves and worry around imaging in particular. And so it's something that we as patients have talked about for a long time, but it's something that radiologists weren't really talking about at all. And so it's been really exciting as a project to kind of bring the word to this other group of people who need to know about it.
Excellent. That's so great. Well, it sounds like Scanxiety, you talk about different people, it affects different people. So it sounds like, it can affect them. It's not exclusive to this, but before, during, and or even after procedures are done. So particularly when you're talking about after procedure, you're talking about when awaiting results, which seems like a pretty important component of that. So now, what, if any, has been your experience with Scanxiety?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've actually been pretty lucky. I feel like all information is good to know. So I don't have a lot of personal Scanxiety myself, but I just encountered a situation with a family member that I love, where we had a situation where the radiologist and then the doctor sat on results that were negative results we needed to act on for more than 3 weeks. So for more than 3 weeks, it was, okay, we can't find the report. The report is not there. Where's the report? And then, we found the report, but the doctor needs to get in touch with you because and then it's bad news because they need to talk to you directly, right? Mm-hmm. And so it just turned into this build up, right? And I think that's right. A lot of what patients are experiencing is the buildup of these nerves and worry because more time kind of goes through. So that was a tough experience for me as a loved one.
Yeah.
Worrying about somebody I care about. So Scanxiety happens for patients and definitely for caregivers and loved ones too.
It's such an important thing to point out. Yes, the caregivers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, this isn't something we had discussed ahead of time, but I mean, uh, I've just noticed from just observing just radiology over the pandemic and particularly in the latter part of the pandemic, there's so much backup. Like so many people kind of waited to go into any kind of clinical settings, only for now, like almost like them to be presenting with more profound issues. So do you know if does any of that backup play into Scanxiety at all? That especially that waiting period?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are seeing some people diagnosed for the first time with some things like cancers and stuff that maybe have gotten a little farther along because they
Mm,
haven't sought out care, as quickly as they would in a different time. And so I've definitely heard about those problems and have run into those problems with patients I've connected with and worked with over time. But I think the biggest thing also is just the stress of the pandemic makes
sure.
these other little stresses that we're going through kind of feel extra heightened in that way. And I would say the pandemic itself too, which for many of us with these chronic illnesses, we still have to be incredibly careful about
Yes.
not getting COVID, right? And so even thinking about COVID as an overlying kind of problem with Scanxiety, it would be totally normal for a patient with terminal cancer like myself to be in the situation where we might want to call the radiology office and make sure, okay, are people wearing masks who are helping
Sure.
me? Are the
Sure.
techs who, in some of these radiology situations, we have people right in our faces
Yeah.
to get you set up for a brain MRI or something, right? Somebody's right kind of in your face, getting everything all set up and everything. And, we might even have those kind of worries about, am I going to, having to go to the hospital or to a medical appointment for imaging, is that going to put me at risk?
Right.
Something like COVID, right? So
Absolutely.
it's just these are layers kind of different worries that patients can have, and that actually is kind of a common thing is that Scanxiety can come with just anything that's the unknown,
Mm.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's important to contextualize that because I know it's really hit and miss. It's not just radiology; it's all disciplines of medicine. It seems like it's a bit hit and miss of who's wearing masks and who's not these days. So yeah,
Sure.
it's important. I think it helps people commiserate if they know other people are having that anxiety too. So hopefully that's one reason we're trying to get out the message. So well, and speaking of getting out the message, like I mentioned off the top of the show, you're co-chairing the PFCC Quality Experience Committee here at the ACR, and it has you all have formed a Scanxiety work group to help spread awareness about the issue. So can you please tell us a little bit about that work group and your goals?
Yeah, it's been a really awesome opportunity this year. I co-chair that committee with Dr. Sabir Raouf, who's incredible, and she herself has been a cancer patient, so she has a really incredible perspective as both a doctor and a patient in that situation. And what's been really cool is we kind of gathered as a work team, and that's patients and radiologists all mixed up and caregivers too in that situation. And what we kind of did is we created a little knowledge base for ourselves. We got our own stories out on paper. We asked friends and relatives and stuff for kind of their ideas around what causes your Scanxiety, what makes you nervous when you do this, like all these simple questions. Or to the radiologists and the techs and professionals, we want to know, like, what do you see for patients, and are there things that you've done that can help and things like that. And so we kind of collected a whole knowledge base, and from there we've been able to turn it into some really cool things that we're excited about. There's for the first time, there's a page up on radiologyinfo.org that's patient facing, that is about Scanxiety and has helpful tips there. And it has, the definition and kind of the details. And that's where that's a great resource that we love patients to be able to go to find out so much about how radiology works and what it's going to be like before they go in, so that they can kind of ease their worries in that way. So having a resource there is really incredible. We got a bulletin, ACR bulletin article out facing radiologists and administrators about what Scanxiety is, why it matters, and things like that.
Absolutely.
And we're excited about an upcoming, we just mentioned that, excited about an upcoming animated tool that we're going to have available for patients too. And it's just been wonderful to have the conversations and also have these direct outlets to be able to share information.
Yeah, and just building on that, I mean, you just mentioned that short animated video. I know that that animated video you're spearheading is going to be coming out around the same time as this particular episode will publish of our podcast. So can you talk a little bit about what you have in store for people with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a really simple little tool that one of the biggest things we can do to help with Scanxiety is let people know they're not alone in facing it, right? That this is a normal thing that can happen, but that there are also things you can do to help improve the way you're feeling. But knowing that you're normal is really, really helpful. I don't want to forget to show off my t-shirt.
Sure, yeah, let's see it.
Dressed up more.
This is an interactive show, so let's see. Taking Back Scanxiety. I love it.
Scanxiety. It's by a friend Chelsea. She's on Etsy as Oh You're So Tough. And she does an amazing store of all these sort of cancer and chronic illness kind of things. But I wanted to share this and mention it because this is Scanxiety is so much in the patient language that we use, and it's something that we talk about all the time. I opened up Twitter this morning and heard a new take on Scanxiety I'd never heard before that was kind of exciting. It was, a guy posted and said, "Does anybody keep checking the results of your scans even when it's good news, just to make sure
there's..."
And that was his form of Scanxiety. Is he still checking, just thinking, oh, maybe
that's probably just human nature. You're like, you've almost been expecting bad news on some level, and now you want to absolutely make sure.
Chronic illness is hard anyway, but Scanxiety is one of the ways that we kind of uniquely have to navigate the world, because there's always another test looming. Right? If you just got through one, you made the appointment for 3 months later.
Right. Yeah. And that 3 months goes fast. It's like, oh, 3 months, that's may as well be a year, a year from now, but it's not. It goes fast.
No, I'm in a clinical trial. And so I'm every 2 months. I have a chest, abdomen, pelvis CT scan. And it's just something you really get used to, and you don't necessarily get used to the feelings, though, because it can be really overwhelming, because there's this one report, this one set of images, can totally change your life.
Yes.
And for those of us with chronic illness, it has changed our lives before. We know it can change.
There's a track record. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I think it helps people to see, part of it is, okay, we're acknowledging that this is a thing and you're perfectly normal, but I think there's an even more powerful message behind it, because you have been through this and you are saying, look, it's okay. You're down to earth, and you're saying, like, if I did it, you can do it. And I think that's such a powerful component of that message.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we definitely want to just encourage people to kind of share the ways that they've gotten through it too, right?
Absolutely.
That idea.
In that same vein, I mean, what are some good coping mechanisms, maybe even just one or two good coping mechanisms you've that you've learned through experience over the years to battle Scanxiety?
Wonderful. So I think the first thing, I mentioned it a little bit, but visiting radiologyinfo.org, that website, is incredible. It really can take you through, even sometimes there's little videos and stuff of like, here's what the inside of this machine looks like. And this is kind of the steps of what they do in this particular kind of appointment. And it'll take you through all different kinds of imaging. So that's a wonderful resource, because again, we want to prepare for just, not too many unexpected things, right? We have a wonderful patient on our team who, one of the issues she brought up was feeling like, she was going to fit in the machine correctly. And she was
Ah,
nervous. Like,
sure.
is this going to be something where I show up and then it's stressful or embarrassing or overwhelming, and then they're not going to even be able to do the test? And so I think the most important thing sometimes we can do is just know that you can communicate ahead of time with these radiology offices and stuff, and they're happy to tell you what's going to happen in more detail, or to allay your fears about, are you going to fit, or are you going to get claustrophobic, or are there ways you could prepare and things like that. And so that combined with just understanding your own kind of relaxation techniques and what works for you individually, that's just kind of what you need to go in there with. I
Yeah.
ran into a problem personally where laying just like on the table for a long time, the pain just because of other problems with where my shoulders
Oh,
are, right?
yeah.
My back. And
Right.
so it's really hard to be still when you're handling that much pain,
Oof.
right? But if I
Right.
take a pain pill at the right time, I'm perfectly prepared
Okay.
for that appointment.
Gotcha. So it's all about, yeah, trial and error in some ways. But, and so like, I wonder if part of this too is like, I haven't encountered anything like what you're describing there, but even just a simple doctor's appointment, I get a little bit nervous about those just because, like you said, it's the unknown. You don't know what you're up against. And there was a long time where I was nervous about even asking too many questions on the phone because whether it was the tone of somebody at the front desk or my perception that I was bothering them when they clearly had a lot to do, I've learned to get over that. And I've like learned to like say, I need to know where I'm going to be parking. You need to like listen to just these few questions, my patented questions I have. And then I find that I'm immediately, and so like I said, this is a minor example. This does nothing compared to what you are talking about. But even in that small regard, I wonder if there's a learning curve where people just have to say, look, I need to know this information, and this person does need to listen to me and hear me and answer these questions. Is there a component of that to Scanxiety that you encourage people to not worry so much about?
Oh, absolutely. I think knowing that you need to find a healthcare team that communicates well, we're customers too,
Yeah, exactly.
And at the end of the day, finding a healthcare team that is going to be friendly and answer your questions and make you feel comfortable asking questions. One of the areas we mentioned caregivers and stuff too, but like, if you're caring for, an elderly parent or a child, that's an extra layer of anxiety. How do I take care of them? Where's all the bathrooms? What if this other thing happens? How do I can't keep my kids still in general. How am I going to keep them still?
Exactly.
What are they going to
In
do?
this suboptimal environment,
Right. So,
to say the least. Yeah.
there's all these questions that come up. And so I really think it's back on the radiology teams and the healthcare teams to be friendly and ready for questions. And again, something like those videos that I mentioned on radiologyinfo.org, that's
Mhm.
also a tool if you are the caregiver, you
Sure.
know, that'd be great to show your child or your elderly parent ahead of time, like, oh,
Mm,
it's just going to look like this, and this is what they do. And
yes.
you can help alleviate fears that way.
Yeah, and the animated videos as well. Those will live on. I believe if it's in keeping with the past animated videos, they'll be on the ACR YouTube channel.
Oh,
Again, we'll link to them here in our show notes, but just in an enduring sense, they'll be on the YouTube channel, I believe. Correct?
yeah, I think so. And that's also what's really cool about those too is there's some existing videos right now that like let you know about like lung screening, some of these questions of like, am I supposed to, be getting checked for this or that, some of those questions are answered in some of those videos and stuff too, which is really important because you can worry that you're not getting kind of screening that you need too.
Yeah. Well, I did the last actually episode I did was with Dr. Nina Vinkoff, and she was spearheading those animations, the AC animations about screening. So I encourage everyone to go back, watch that episode, watch those animated videos. I think the hope is that they're going to be a reservoir of those animated videos at some point on all kinds of different subjects. So
Yeah, I think they're just really, really helpful. And again, just kind of like these frequently asked questions, if we can find ways to get those creatively to patients so that they can, feel more prepared or understand some of these more complicated topics, that's amazing.
absolutely, in such a disarming way, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, keeping things in perspective, like you've kind of touched on, is kind of key to a relatively pleasant imaging experience, it seems like. So how would you advise listeners or people watching who might themselves be preparing for an imaging scan? How would you advise them to keep things in perspective?
Yeah, this is how I handle my potential scanxiety and how I think about all imaging. And it's really helped me, and I've been excited to share it with a lot of people, just because if you can kind of, if you can kind of like get your attitude straight, I think that you can walk into these ready and prepared for whatever's going to be next for you. And so for me, I think attitude is everything. And every time that we get imaging done, we get up to the minute information about what's going on in our bodies. And that's the information that helps us make the best plan going forward. So no matter what, it's not really about good news or bad news to me. The point for me is I'm finding out here's what's going on. And then immediately my healthcare team is going to help me figure out, okay, here's how we're going to respond to the latest thing going on with your body. And that might be good news technically or bad news, but it's really about it. It's all good news in the sense that we're moving forward, doing the best thing we can to help you, because there is no better tool. If you think about what we're dealing with medically now compared to 50 years ago, even, right? Radiology is one of the pieces that has brought us so far in medicine of what we're able to know and learn and be able to do. I mean, the tiny, tiny things that we can see now without even cutting you open, it's astonishing to me. And so
Yes.
if you think about it as we have this incredible tool to give us up to date information, we can do so much more medically when we just know what's going on. And so to me, imaging is always good.
Yeah, now just to round things out, I'm very interested to hear your perspective on the future of the Scanxiety movement. Sounds like you've got a lot of irons in the fire in the PFCC, but I know you're also doing things outside of that. So where do you think all of this is headed?
I really think that it's just going to continue to kind of evolve. It's so neat that it is a patient generated term and a patient generated kind of movement and idea. And so I love to see that more people are going to kind of know what it is, which means that we can prepare for it and we can think about things differently, and we can help all sorts of patients feel more comfortable. So I just think it's going to continue to kind of evolve on its own. Like I just mentioned, like Twitter itself is such a great example of things evolve so quickly sometimes in the social media world. And yeah, I love that more people are just going to continue to know what we're talking about.
So, well, thank you. It's really, as always, been such a pleasure speaking with you today, Amanda. Like I said, I know you're active on Twitter, but is there anywhere, and we'll have your Twitter handle appear as you're speaking, as we did last time, but is there anywhere else people can find you, or do you recommend people just go to Twitter and start there?
Twitter's great. I'm MI Manda, like Michigan Manda, on Instagram as well. So you can find me there. And I really am excited to we'll make sure we link to my BVOG. That's our racial disparities work in gynecologic cancer in particular. And so if anybody's interested in what that looks like, we've got an amazing team doing some crazy cool work there to just get patients heard, So yeah, that's what I'm all about. And it's such a privilege to get to do that with the ACR too, and to get to talk with you again today, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're just so pleased that you give us your time. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. And for our viewers, if you have any ideas for future show topics, please do let us know on Twitter at @RadiologyACR, and please use the hashtag hashtag ACR Bulletin Podcast. I also invite you to check out all of our episodes at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and please do be sure to subscribe to ACR's YouTube channel to see our latest episodes. And if you found this episode valuable, please hit that like button. So thank you again, Amanda. Really appreciate it. We'll have you back again in the future, and hopefully you can inform us on all the goings on and PFCC and beyond. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. And thank you to our listeners. This has been the ACR Bulletin Podcast. See you next time.